Hello from Kubea's house in the heat bubble. This is my mini orchard tour. This is Mediterranean scrubland, but I would like it to be something else. I regularly go to our green point, and they give a small bag of mulch a week if you scoop it yourself. It's not of great quality, and so the spot I've chosen is right at the top of the stairs. I think it mainly, I'm going to use it to be the beginning of a path, but there was sort of a dip here that risked catching a foot and falling headlong down the stairs. So that's where it's been going. This is a, I don't know how many generations old pile of rafter bricks that for something that either was built and fell down or that was never built or was left over. It's a great mystery, but here it is at the top of the stairs. This is a tree that we had brought down because it was completely shading out the solar roof, and it wasn't cut small enough for me to haul it. I had a surgery last year, so I'm not lifting anything, and I'm not very good at insisting that the rest of my family does either. This is the part I wanted to show you because I was just telling my I don't know, he's not my anything, a nice guy in Andalusia who tries to do syntropic farming in his context, that I have been sort of making up a fake chop and drop, but these are actually weeds from the side of the highway in the 3-mile walk between my house and town. And the layer that looks kind of dried out and like straw is a variety of weeds and grasses and etc. that I wouldn't mind coming up next year to be part of the chop and drop. And they're meant to kind of suppress some of what naturally grows up against this frustrating cyclone fence. And so far so good. I've left some of the tall heathers, these which I think are called boish with the red stems, are one of the bounce back species here that often come back from rootstock after an area burns. I cut them back pretty aggressively, I guess I would say, this spring. I had kind of a watch and see year where I mostly cut ornamental grasses. They aren't the much lauded vetiver, but there's some other kind of beach grass that I think of as ornamental in a garden context, although they're everywhere here. This little palmate guy is a protected species and maybe only grows in my province in Garraf, and so I can't take those out. But also the green waste recycling doesn't want palmera, yucca, maybe is the third thing they've added. So when they produce seeds, I tend to distribute them sort of outside. I don't hate them, but I don't really want more of them. They are pretty enough, but they're quite slow growing, and once you have them, you can't unhave them. So that guy stays there. I'm not used to heather being so tall, and the ones that more or less stand up I've left alone. This is a plum tree. I think I wish I had done it differently, that it got more shade and that the apricots got the positioning that's most clearly full sun. But this is one of the new ones. I'm giving a bit of help. We call them Stanley and Pedro because that's their varieties. And Pedro is actually a president plum, and I didn't want to name him after my president, so it's Pedro and Stanley. This guy is big dog. He's a Canino apricot, and I think it's doing pretty well on its own. I can see my rough bindweed is coming right back. Kids, send the kids up with either water from cleaning the aquarium, or because some members of my family will not shower in cold water, I'm sort of training them to capture the cold water when they shower, and then I redistribute it in the garden. But this sort of fake chop and drop that is actually stuff I brought in, I think I'm going to like this. I think whatever comes up from it next year, especially the wild oat type grasses, will be good for cutting and making the next layer over. Let's see, these guys that are sort of probably in the Madrona family somehow. It had one really tall leader that I didn't like, but I've cut it back and it's surviving. You can see another palm there at the base of the pine. The pines really make it hard for much else to grow. I've left prickly juniper because it seems like it belongs here, and a few of the upright, I'm going to say bush, I'm not sure. Sounds like I'm just talking about bushes, but I think that's what my husband calls it in Catalan. And to potentially be kind of a companion and give a little shade. But there are 9 million of those, so once it's doing well on its own, it might get cut back. This is one where I regret choosing it at the nursery. They were short on apricots, and it has damage to the cambium layer at the very base. I don't know if an animal chewed on it or I just didn't check it over well enough, but I'm leaving it dead because sometimes birds sit in it. Why not? This fence is hard to defend and falls down a lot, but almost everyone where I live has a fence or a full wall because the porc singlar, the wild pigs, the boar, come through and do a lot of damage. This is a compost pile. You can see someone just threw bananas. That is drying out and starting to look like it's always been there. Got some eggshells and some bananas, and could be doing better with that, but I am trying to keep returning to the soil what can be returned. This is Stanley, and I don't know why I leave the tags on, but it makes them feel like friends, I guess. And the rest of what's intentional here, again, I've left the prickly juniper and some bush and some Madrona-ish. I should know what that's called, but I don't remember. And mainly this has been cleared out of the rough bindweed, which is incredibly aggressive and everywhere around this zone from the last time the community did a big pre-fire fuel reduction cut down. Mostly what came back are the bush, whatever they're called, and an absolute ton of rough bindweed, which reseed themselves thanks to the birds. So mainly I'm coming through and discouraging those because they drop big clusters of red seeds and they make it so you can't walk. I did get a bat box up, and I can't even tell what's on camera. The sun's in my eyes. It really should have gone up in wet weather so that they would find it. I'm not sure how long it will take any bats to find it, but I'm optimistic. It looks like it's too low to the ground, but there's actually still a drop off for it. Usually the bats want, like, I don't know, a good 9 feet so they can let go from where they're perched and go down. But it's just my angle here. They're really kind of above the cliff. And otherwise, I mainly am cutting back and doing some chop and drop. I might come through and take some of these grasses down and make them cover. I wouldn't mind having fewer of those. They're pretty tough, and sometimes you're just glad there's anything alive. But I have a wish that this looked something more like an orchard and less like a cliff. And sometimes you can see I've been on the other side of our fence because that is technically part of a fire break. Don't know that it doesn't belong to anybody, but it doesn't belong to anybody who would be upset with me for making it so I can walk on the other side of our fence. And neighbors tend to have more citrus and figs and Nespro, which I think in English we call medlar. They're an orange fruit that is sort of a cross in texture between an apple and an orange. And I like those things, but they're pretty cheap and easy to come by in their season. So I'm trying to grow apricots and plums, which I can never have enough of. And I don't know. That's my update. I hope you're staying cool and that things are going for you. Goodbye from Kubeus.